Today, I just wanted to talk to you guys about having an autistic child. I remember when our son was diagnosed as having autism or being on the spectrum, it was incredibly isolating. No one in my family that I had known of was diagnosed as being on the spectrum, and at the time my son was 3, now he's 8. It's been 5 years, and there's so much information and resources out there, but there are just some tips that I wish someone could have shared with us. And so I just wanted to share these things with you guys and hope that it is a little bit helpful. The first thing is it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I know that it was a very difficult, but your child can still have a very full life. That's first. I purpose to make sure that my son has a full life, and I know that many other people who are on the spectrum, when they have a support system that is intentional, they are able to accomplish extraordinary things and are able to really hone their talents and to be extraordinarily productive in society. So this is by no means a death sentence. It doesn't mean your child is not going to be able to be successful. Just, I would say, you may be reflective on a lot of things that have happened. I know I went through a process where I was extremely reflective, wondering, how I didn't catch it sooner. And just a combination of feeling relieved at some of the experiences I was having. I remember feeling incredibly overwhelmed. And I felt almost like satisfied in that there was a reason why a lot of the behaviors and even my anxiety existed. Was that kind of your experience too, David? A little?
No, mine was kind of different because, as a man, like the first thing when you tell me there's a problem, the first place I go mentally is, okay, let's fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So I immediately just kind of dove in, like with the idea that I could fix it, get him the therapies, get him the services, the special diets. All of which we're basically still kind of doing. But it's just I dove in with the mindset of fixing it. But the truth of the matter is you can't look at it that way. It's almost like you kind of have to think about it like how you would with any neurotypical child. Like there's just a learning process. There's a growth
Mm-hmm.
process. The process with the autistic child looks a little different, but there is this learning and this growth process. And you just have to, you got to be patient. You got to learn to celebrate every little victory, every skill that the child picks up, every new word that they use appropriately. Anytime you see less of a behavior, you really got to celebrate those things. And wherever you find an area of weakness within the child's or within their understanding, everyone has weaknesses or barriers in their understanding or knowledge gaps. When you encounter those, work with the child. With my child in particular, I use a lot of blocks and like 3-dimensional things that he can touch, see, interact with to explain certain concepts. Because with a neurotypical child, it's like they just kind of pick up everything. Children are normally just like sponges, but with the autistic child, there just maybe you may have to go over things that seem like just should be picked up organically. You just have to be patient enough to go over those things when you see like knowledge gaps or learning gaps. And also, school is a good resource. If you have a good ABA center, where people are professionals, they've dealt with many, because autism is different with every child. So you definitely want to get outside help, but just really try to see if there are gaps in your child's knowledge that you can feel, areas that you can work on, and just celebrate small victories and just take it one day at a time.
For my experience, I just want to let you guys know some things that have been extremely helpful. I remember when we first got the diagnosis, Daniel was about 3 years old, um, and we had experienced um, what we later found out were kind of symptoms of autism, fecal digging. He would hold things for hours at a time, food objects like a cookie or a chicken nugget, and he would crumble it. Um, just like he would have inflammation in his face. And I remember him seeming just like a really unhappy kid. And it really like wore on my nerves because I'm naturally kind of a cheery person. Um, and I couldn't really make him smile or laugh. And he had like this real inflammation, almost like a dazed look. And we fed him things that he would eat because he was an extremely picky eater. He would only eat yogurt, goldfish, and macaroni and cheese. And we later found out that children on the spectrum often do a lot better when you take away gluten and dairy. And it was so disheartening to hear that because I wanted to cry because I'm like, that's the only thing I can get him to eat. I can't get him to eat anything else. He was such a picky eater. He literally would only eat macaroni and cheese and goldfish. I feel like I believe I did cry several times when I found that out. And I'm grateful for David because he was more forceful when it came and more patient at the same time when it came to introducing other foods and making sure he consumed calories and we were able to remove those items. We got him to eat more whole foods and more beans, and we immediately saw a difference in his inflammation. He had a runny nose for
Months.
almost probably like a year
So
before we
bad.
took him off of dairy. And we thought it was a cold. We thought it was maybe the daycare. We thought it was maybe school. But as soon as we took him off the dairy, it was so hard because I was so nervous that he was going to die because he was already such a picky eater.
He's so skinny.
He was so skinny and frail. And so when we took him off the dairy, his inflammation went away. He stopped snotting. He started to smile. He started to giggle. His appetite picked up. And so I say all that to say, because I went on a field trip with his class and I saw one of the mothers there and she was feeding her son pepperonis, and he is more severe on the spectrum with the head banging and some of the other repetitive behaviors, which we also noticed stopped a lot, especially with the diet. I think the diet in particular was one of the biggest milestones to changing his behavior. When we put him on that probiotic, we noticed almost immediately that the fecal digging stopped. Mm-hmm. And it was something that was really isolating for me because it was so hard because he would hide and do his fecal digging, and I would have to find him, and then I'd have to clean it, and I'd clean him, and I would wash his hands, and the smell would still be there. But after we gave him the probiotic, after we took dairy away, those really hard behaviors, we noticed the head banging, which we find is often emotional. It went almost away. All of it lessened. And so I know everybody's experience is going to be different. I know everybody's child, it's a spectrum and everybody's different. But I just wanted to make this video because, like I said, it was so isolating when we found out that I just wanted to share, even if it's slightly helpful for somebody who's also going through it. Just know that you're not alone. I'm a member of several Facebook groups where other people are parents of autistic children, because there are a lot of people out there, a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of help that exists. I know it's a lot more difficult with the pandemic, but just be positive and know that your child has a bright future. And I'm really hopeful for you, and I'm hopeful for us as well.
Yeah. And another thing, just on a personal note, prayer is important. Like if you're, I mean, when you're dealing with this, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of people who are non-religious or non-theistic, people who have autistic children, but prayer or meditation, you need something to help you manage your own emotions, to
Yes.
care for your own mental stress, because it'll weigh heavily on you. That's just honesty. You know, it's your child, it's your baby, and to see them missing milestones, missing benchmarks, not being able to socialize, to have these things happening, it really weighs on you. So in the process of caring for your child, you have to make sure you're caring for yourself, and you have to. I mean, for me personally, prayer, meditation, you have to do things just to keep your emotions and your mental health in check in in just daily life dealing with that. So that's my bit of personal advice.